In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to solve cubic equations that have three terms. So the first thing we're going to do is follow the greatest common factor steps. That means we're going to look for what's the biggest number that goes into each term, and then we're going to subtract out the lowest exponent from each term, looking at the variables. Then we're going to set each of the factors equal to 0 at the very end and solve. Now there is a calculator strategy. The calculator strategy is you just simply graph the problem and you're going to find the x-intercepts, and we're going to look for the x value of the x-intercept. So we're going to look for this guy right here. And so whenever you graph this and you find this number right here, which is the x value of the coordinate or the x-intercept, that is going to be your answer. All right, so let's start with the algebraic paper method here. So we're going to look at our numbers. We have a hidden 1, we have an 8, and a 20. The biggest number that goes into 1, 8, and 20 is a 1. We're not going to factor out a 1 because that doesn't change anything. So now we're going to look at our exponents. We have 3, 2, and 1. We always look at the lowest exponent. So we're going to factor out just an x. And then you say, okay, if I took an x out, let me erase this here. Then we could say, x times what would give me x to the third? Well, that would be x squared. And remember, when you're multiplying letters or variables, you add the exponents. Let me do this again. X times what would give me negative 8x squared? Well, that would be negative 8x. Let me say x times what here would be negative 20x. That's simply negative 20. Now what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can factor this quadratic. And since a is 1, we are going to play what two numbers? So we say, what two numbers can we multiply by that give us negative 20? But when we put them together, give us negative 8. Well, that would be negative 10 and 2. Negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. Negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. So those would be my additional factors that we write. So we say x minus 10, x plus 2, and then don't forget about the x that we have here on the outside. And we set each one of these individually equal to 0. So we're going to say x equals 0, check. All right, well, we already have an answer there. Then we're going to take this guy here and we say x minus 10 equals 0. And then we say x plus 2 equals 0. We already have one answer right here. We know that one of the answers is equal to 0. And this one here is just 10 because you're doing opposites. So the opposite of minus 10 would be plus 10. The opposite of plus 2 would be negative 2. And so these would be my three answers. So I would say x equals 0, negative 2, and 10. So what does that look like graphically? So 0, negative 2, and 10. Let's fire up Desmos here. So here is the equation that we had in our problem right here, and we're looking for where the graph crosses the x-axis. Well, you can see right here it crosses at negative 2. We only want the x value. You can see here it crosses at 0. We only want the x value. And again, 10, we only want the x value. So negative 2, 0, and 10, those would be my answers graphically. So you can just graph those and get your answers. All right, let's look at another example here. All right, so this one, you can see that the powers are not in order. We have 1, 2, and 3. We want them in order as 3, 2, and 1. So we're going to rewrite this. Negative 3 x to the third minus 18x squared. And since that 21 is positive, we say 21x. So now we want to factor out the largest number that goes into 3, 18, and 21. And we're actually going to factor out a negative 3 because this leading coefficient here is negative. And then we take out the lowest exponent, which is going to be just an x, right? So now we are going to create an open set of parentheses and fill out our multiplication that we need on the inside. Here we go. So we're going to say negative 3x times what is negative 3x to the third? Well, that is x squared because you're adding the exponents on the variables. So then we say negative 3x times what in the middle is negative 18x squared, negative 6x. I'm sorry, positive 6x. Negative 3 times positive 6, negative 18. X times x, add the exponents, x squared. One more time. Negative 3x times what on the end is positive 21x. That would be negative 7. And we're setting that equal to 0, right? So since our value right here in front of x squared is 1, we're going to play the what two numbers again. So what two numbers can we multiply by that give us negative 7? But when we put them together, give us positive 6. Well, that would be 7 and negative 1. Because 7 times negative 1 is negative 7. 7 minus 1 is 6. So these are the two additional factors we're going to write down. So we have negative 3x. Then we have to write our factors for 7. So you x plus 7 and then x minus 1. We're going to set that equal to 0. And then we are going to create 3 equations from this. So we have negative 3x equals 0. X plus 7 equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0. So on this one here, I just do the opposite of multiplying by negative 3. If I divide by negative 3, it's still going to be 0. Just do the opposite of minus 7, or plus 7, that would be minus 7. Do the opposite of minus 1, that would be plus 1. So we have 3 answers. Here, I'll write them from least to greatest. Negative 7, 0, and 1. Let's see if that shows up graphically. Negative 7, 0, and 1. So I type in my problem. I don't have to rewrite the problem here. So we have negative 7, 0, and 1. You're only looking at the x coordinate, or the x value of the coordinate. And then our last example here. Everybody's in order. So when I say everybody's in order, we're talking about the exponents, right? I have 3, 2, and then the hidden 1. Biggest number that goes into 2, 26, and 72 is 2. And we always factor out the lowest number of exponents for the variable, which would just be x. So now we need to figure out what we have to fill out on the inside, our missing multiplication factor. 2x times what is 2x to the third? Well, that would just be x squared. 2x times what in the middle is negative 26x squared. That would be negative 13x. And then one more time, 2x times what on the end is 72. That would be positive 36. And since our a value is 1, that's the value in front of x squared, we can play what two numbers. So we can say what two numbers can we multiply by that give us 36? But when we put them together, give us negative 13. Well, that would be negative 9 and negative 4. Negative times a negative is a positive 36. Negative 9 minus 4 is negative 13. So now we can write down our factors. So we have 2x, x minus 9, x minus 4. Those are all set equal to 0. Now we can create our 3 equations. 2x equals 0. X minus 9 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. And then we just solve. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is to divide. If you do 0 divided by 2, it's 0. The opposite of minus 9 is plus 9, so it's positive. The opposite of negative 4 or minus 4 is positive 4. And if I were to write these in order from least to greatest, 0, 4, and 9, those would be my 3 answers, 0, 4, and 9. Let's see if that shows up. When we graph this here, so this is my third equation. So we have x equals 0. We have the x coordinate, or the x value of the coordinate is 4, and the x value of the coordinate is 9. So there you have it. That's how you solve cubic equations.